Sometimes the deepest wounds come not from enemies, but from the people who once held your heart with care. I never thought I would write this story. Not because I can't remember it, but because remembering hurts more than forgetting ever did. Her name was Anika. Mine is Mira. And we were supposed to grow old as best friends, laughing at our younger selves, helping each other through marriage, motherhood, maybe even growing gray together. That's what we always said. But life doesn't always keep its promises. Anika came into my life like a calm river, steady, beautiful, and full of gentle warmth. We met when we were both 10 years old, standing in line for school lunch. I had forgotten my lunchbox, and she quietly tore her sandwich in half and gave me the bigger piece. That was her way. Quiet kindness. Small acts that made you feel seen. From that moment on, she was there. Every birthday, every fight with my parents, every tear and every secret, I gave them all to her. And she held them carefully, as if they mattered. I had never been good at trusting people. But Anika made it easy. She wasn't just my best friend. She was my only safe place. My diary with a heartbeat. And maybe that's why what happened later broke something deeper in me, something that I don't think will ever fully heal. It started slowly. Or maybe it didn't. Maybe the signs were always there, and I just chose not to see them. His name was Rohan. I met him at a friend's party, an ordinary moment that turned into something unforgettable. He was soft-spoken, the kind of man who listens more than he talks, and when he laughed, his eyes almost closed. We talked for hours that night. About books, travel, strange dreams, and the kind of love that's quiet but strong. I felt seen. Understood. It felt like something real. Anika wasn't at that party. But when I told her about Rohan the next morning, her smile was wide and excited. She hugged me and said, "He sounds perfect for you." I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She was my person. The three of us began spending time together. Dinners, movie nights, coffee dates where Rohan and I would sit close and Anika would laugh along with us. At first, it felt like she was simply happy for me. But there were small things. Her compliments became less frequent. Her tone changed. Sometimes, she'd say something like, "Are you sure he's really your type?" or "You seem different lately." At the time, I thought she was just being protective. But looking back now, it feels different. It feels like she was trying to pull me away, inch by inch. I should have asked questions sooner. I should have listened to that quiet voice inside me that felt a little tug whenever she stared at him for too long. But I didn't. I kept trusting her. Even when she began texting him separately. Just asking for his advice, she'd say, "You know I'm not good with this stuff." I smiled and nodded. That's what you do when you love someone. You give them the benefit of the doubt. Even if it costs you everything. Then came the night everything changed. I remember it too clearly. Rohan had been distant for weeks. Less present. Less soft. I asked him if something was wrong, and he just shook his head and said he was tired. I believed him. That night, I went to Anika's house unannounced. I needed her. I needed to talk. To cry. To feel safe. But what I saw when I walked in shattered every part of me. They were on the couch. Her head on his shoulder. His hand in hers. And the moment our eyes met, it was as if time stopped. Anika froze. Rohan stood up, quickly, as if movement could undo what had already happened. But it was too late. The silence between us said everything. No screaming. No drama. Just heartbreak. She tried to explain. Said it was a mistake. Said she never meant to hurt me. Said it just happened. As if love is something that happens to you, like an accident you had no control over. But love isn't an accident. It's a choice. And she chose him. Not once. But again and again, behind my back. That night, I walked home in the rain. Without an umbrella. Without my heart. Without the person who had once been my entire world. It's been over a year now. I haven't spoken to either of them since. Some wounds stay quiet. They don't bleed. They don't scream. But they live in you, changing the way you trust, the way you hope, the way you love again. People say time heals everything. But I think time just teaches you how to live with the pain. And still, sometimes I dream about her. About us laughing at nothing, our feet in the river, our eyes full of youth. And then I wake up to the silence of what's no longer there. I think the hardest part wasn't losing Rohan. It was losing her. With him, there was romance, yes. There were dreams. But with her, there was history. Years and years of quiet companionship. Inside jokes. Shared notebooks. Whispered confessions. 1,000 little memories that added up to something sacred. Something I thought was unbreakable. And yet, in one quiet betrayal, it all collapsed like a house made of sand. For days after that night, I didn't speak to anyone. My phone kept buzzing, calls from Anika, a few texts from Rohan, even a message from his sister asking if I was okay. I didn't reply to any of them. I just sat on the floor of my room, staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet hum of the fan, trying to feel something other than the slow ache inside my chest. It wasn't just heartbreak. It was grief. As if someone had died. And in a way, someone had. The person I thought Anika was, the version of her that had lived in my mind for so long, she was gone. I replayed everything in my head. Every conversation. Every moment the three of us had shared. I started noticing the things I hadn't noticed before. The way she leaned in a little too close. The way her eyes lingered when he wasn't looking. The way she laughed a little louder at his jokes than she did at mine. And once you start seeing things, you can't unsee them. I remember one day, months before it all happened, Anika and I were sitting in a cafe. I had just told her that I thought I was falling in love with Rohan. She smiled and said, "He's lucky to have you." I believed her. I smiled back. But now, when I think of that moment, I wonder, was that envy in her eyes? Or was I just imagining it, twisting the past to fit the betrayal? I started writing in a journal. Not because I wanted to make sense of it all, but because I didn't know what else to do. Page after page of questions with no answers. Why didn't she tell me? When did it start? Did she ever feel guilty? Did she plan it or did it just happen? Did he love her more than he loved me? Or was I just a placeholder until something better came along? Those questions haunted me. Still do, sometimes. And the worst part is, I'll never know the answers. Because even if they told me, would I believe them? Weeks passed. I went back to work. Smiled at people in the hallway. Pretended to be fine when coworkers asked if I was doing okay. Just tired, I'd say. Busy with work. Nobody wants to hear the real answer. Nobody wants to sit with someone else's sadness. So you put on your mask and move through the world like nothing's broken. But inside, I was hollow. My parents noticed something was wrong. My mother would leave tea outside my door every evening, just like she used to when I was a child and had a bad day. She never asked what had happened. She just sat with me some evenings, watching old movies in silence. That's the thing about real love, it doesn't always ask questions. Sometimes it just stays. Anika stopped calling after a while. Her last message said, "I'll always love you. I hope one day you can forgive me." I didn't reply. Not because I hated her, but because I didn't know what to say. What do you say to someone who took the one thing you trusted them with the most? Not a secret. Not money. But your heart. One afternoon, I went to the old bookstore near the lake. It was one of those quiet, dusty places with wooden floors that creaked under your feet and sunlight that filtered through the glass like soft gold. Rohan and I had come here once, early in our relationship. He had picked up a poetry book and read a line out loud. I don't remember the exact words. Something about how love changes shape but never really leaves. That day, I picked up that same book. It fell open to a random page, and this time the line read, "Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing to stop bleeding." I closed the book quietly. My fingers trembled just a little. It hit me in that moment that maybe I was still bleeding. Still hoping for an apology that could stitch the wound closed. Still waiting for someone to make it make sense. But life doesn't always offer closure. Sometimes the only closure you get is acceptance. So I started doing small things. Not to fix everything, but to remember who I was before it all fell apart. I started walking in the evenings. Just 30 minutes at first. No music, no distractions. Just the sound of my feet on the pavement and the rhythm of my breath. I signed up for a pottery class, not because I was good at it, but because shaping something with my hands made me feel grounded. Real. There was a girl in that class named Asha. She sat next to me, always wore mismatched socks, and laughed in a way that filled the whole room. One day, she looked at my clay bowl and said, "It's a little lopsided, but I love it. Feels more human that way." I smiled. That sentence stayed with me. Maybe I was a little lopsided now too. But maybe that wasn't a bad thing. With time, I started talking to people again. Not deeply, not fully, but enough to feel human. I'd smile at strangers in the cafe, help my neighbor carry her groceries, wave at the old man who fed birds every morning. These tiny connections didn't erase the pain, but they reminded me that I was still here. Still alive. Still capable of warmth. And then one evening, months later, I saw them. I was walking through a park near my office when I noticed a couple sitting on a bench. I recognized Rohan's jacket first. Then Anika's laughter. They didn't see me. They were too caught up in each other, leaning close, whispering something. And for a moment, my breath caught in my throat. But then, nothing. No tears. No anger. Just silence inside me. Like a wave that had already crashed and returned to the ocean. I stood there for a second, then turned around and walked away. I didn't hate them. I didn't love them either. What I felt was something quieter, something like peace. The kind of peace that comes not from resolution, but from release. When I got home that night, I took out my journal and wrote, "Today, I saw the people who broke me. And I felt nothing." Maybe that's what healing looks like. Not a grand moment. Just a quiet one. Some friendships end with loud fights. Ours ended in silence. And in that silence, I finally found myself again, not the girl I was before them, but someone softer, stronger, and more careful with her own heart. There's something strange about rebuilding your life alone. At first, you think you're just patching up the cracks, returning to who you used to be before the damage. But slowly, you realize that person is gone. Not because she died, but because she grew. She learned. She saw what people are capable of when they're desperate, when they're in love, when they think no one is watching. I used to believe that if someone loved you, truly loved you, they could never hurt you. That love made people kind. But that's not always true. Sometimes, love makes people selfish. Sometimes, love doesn't stop them from lying, or hiding things, or choosing themselves over you. And that was the hardest lesson of all. I thought I knew Anika completely. I thought our friendship had no blind spots. But trust is not about knowing someone's every thought. It's about believing they will protect what matters to you. And she didn't. She knew how much Rohan meant to me. And she still reached for him. There's no perfect way to explain what that does to a person. When someone you've trusted with your rawest fears and your deepest joy suddenly becomes the person you need to protect yourself from, it breaks something very deep. Something that's hard to put back together. For a long time, I carried that break with me like a second shadow. Even in moments of happiness, it would creep back in. When a new friend offered to meet for coffee, I hesitated. When a man I met at work smiled too warmly, I pulled away. I didn't want to be hurt again. I didn't want to be fooled by warmth that might turn cold without warning. But here's what I didn't expect. Healing doesn't ask your permission. It sneaks in through the small moments. A smile you return without fear. A laugh that slips out of your mouth before you can stop it. A walk in the rain where you don't feel like crying anymore. It's slow, yes. But it's real. There was a turning point one evening when I went back to that riverside cafe where Anika and I used to sit during college. I hadn't been there in years. The same waiter was still there, older now, with grayer hair. He remembered me. "You used to sit in a corner booth," he said, pointing. "Always giggling about something." I smiled. "Yes," I replied, "we used to laugh a lot." I sat in that booth alone. Ordered the same coffee. And for the first time, the memory didn't feel like a knife, it felt like a photograph. Something I could hold. Something I could set down without shaking. That night, I wrote again in my journal, "I'm not angry anymore. I'm just tired of carrying what no longer belongs to me." It was that sentence that gave me the courage to write a message I'd been avoiding for almost a year. I didn't send it to Anika or Rohan. I sent it to myself. It simply said, "You didn't deserve that. But you survived it." And that matters more than their love ever did. I think we spend too much time waiting for the people who hurt us to fix it. To apologize in just the right way. To say the one thing that will make it all make sense. But some apologies never come. Some people never look back. And that doesn't mean your pain wasn't real. It just means your healing has to be your own. Slowly, I started allowing people in again. Not many. Just a few. A coworker who always brought extra snacks. A neighbor who shared her garden flowers. A classmate from pottery who asked me if I wanted to visit a weekend fair. I said yes. That fair was loud and messy and full of colors. Children ran past me with candy in their hands. Music played from every corner. It was life unapologetically alive. I remember sitting on a bench, eating something sweet and fried, and suddenly realizing I hadn't thought of Rohan or Anika in hours. Not once. I had laughed. I had felt joy. And it had nothing to do with them. It was in that moment I realized I was free. They were a chapter in my story. Maybe even a long one. But not the whole book. There's one more thing I need to say. Not for them. For me. If I ever saw Anika again, I don't think I'd walk away. I think I'd look at her and simply say, "Thank you." Not because I'm grateful for the betrayal. I'm not. But because that betrayal showed me the difference between shared memories and true loyalty. Between presence and protection. Between love and convenience. And maybe, just maybe, without her breaking me, I wouldn't have found this new version of myself. A version that knows how to stand alone. A version that doesn't apologize for being careful. A version that understands some people come into your life to show you who not to become. I'm still learning. Still soft in some places. Still healing in others. But I'm no longer hiding from the pain. I'm walking through it. One step at a time. It's been 2 years now. And if you ask me how I feel about everything today, I'd say this: I don't carry it like I used to. The sharp edge is gone. What's left is more like an old scar, faded, no longer painful, but still there when I look closely. A quiet reminder of something I survived. I no longer wait for an apology that may never come. I no longer run through old conversations trying to decode what went wrong. And I no longer question my worth based on someone else's betrayal. That, more than anything, is what healing looks like: reclaiming your story from the hands of those who dropped it. One morning, I found a letter in my mailbox. Handwritten. No return address. I opened it slowly. It was from Anika. Her words were shaky, unsure. She wrote about regret. About how the love she thought she had found with Rohan didn't turn out the way she imagined. That he left her a few months after I last saw them. That he said he missed someone more gentle. Her words, "I think he meant you." She said she didn't write to get me back. She knew she had lost that chance. She wrote because she wanted me to know that she had finally seen what she had done. Not just to me, but to herself. She ended it with, "I miss the sound of us laughing. I know I don't deserve it. But I hope you're happy, wherever you are." I folded the letter and placed it in the back of my journal. Not out of anger, but because I wasn't ready to throw it away. Not yet. Some part of me still respected the memory of who we once were. That version of us deserves a quiet goodbye. And as for Rohan, I never heard from him again. He vanished from my life the way he came into it, quietly, without warning. I no longer wonder if he loved me. Maybe he did. Or maybe he loved the way I made him feel about himself. Either way, he wasn't mine to keep. But I am mine. And that's enough. These days, my life is smaller but more peaceful. I still walk every evening. I still write in my journal, though the pages now are filled with new stories, gentler ones. I started volunteering at a community center, helping kids with their reading. Their laughter fills up spaces I didn't know were still empty. And there's someone new. His name is Ayan. I met him at the pottery studio. Not during class, but when I dropped a cup and it shattered across the floor. He was the one who helped me pick up the pieces, literally. We laughed, and it felt easy. Not magical. Not overwhelming. Just kind. And right now, that's all I want. He knows about Anika. About Rohan. About everything. I told him one evening as we sat under a tree near the lake. I expected him to ask questions. He didn't. He just held my hand and said, "It must have been really hard." That's all. And somehow, that was enough. I've learned that love doesn't always come like a storm. Sometimes, it comes like morning light, slow, steady, and gentle on your skin. I still think of Anika sometimes. Not with anger. Not even with sadness. Just with a quiet understanding that not everyone stays. Some people come into your life only to teach you how strong you are when they leave. And if you're reading this, if you've ever been betrayed by someone you loved deeply, let me tell you this, you will survive. Not all at once. Not without nights that feel endless. But slowly. Quietly. Like breath returning after a long cry. You will learn to smile without pain. You will trust again, carefully, yes, but truly. And you will wake up one morning, look at the mirror, and see someone you're proud of. Someone softer, but wiser. Someone who knows how to keep herself whole. Because even after everything, after the silence, the tears, the heartbreak, I still believe in love. I still believe in friendship. I just believe now that they must begin with me. My name is Mira. And this is not a story of betrayal. It's a story of becoming whole.